The monks file into the church, moving through darkness lit only by a few candles. Their breath is visible in the frigid air. They wear their habits, heavy wool robes, black in the Benedictine tradition, and over these winter cloaks for additional warmth. Their hands are tucked into their sleeves, their faces are composed, turned inward. They take their places in the choir stalls. The church is stone, unheated, barely warmer than the winter night outside. Cold enough that the holy water in the font near the door has a skim of ice. Cold enough that breath lingers in clouds before dissipating. The prior, the abbot's second in command, begins the office. His voice is steady, practiced, carrying in the cold, stone space. The monks respond. Their voices merge, 60 men chanting in unison, the Latin phrases familiar as breathing. This is how the night begins. The service is brief. The words follow their ancient pattern: psalms, a hymn, a blessing. The monks have heard these phrases every night for years. Brother William, who has been at Saint Benedict since he was a boy, knows every word by heart. His lips move automatically. His mind is partly elsewhere, thinking about the dormitory, about whether his winter cloak will be warm enough tonight, about the chilblains on his fingers that ache in the cold. Brother Thomas, the novice master, stands straight despite the cold. He's watching the younger monks, the novices who are still learning this life. Young Brother Peter is shivering visibly. Thomas makes a mental note to check on him later, to make sure the boy has adequate bedding. The prior's voice rises slightly for the final blessing. The monks bow their heads. The service ends. Then comes the great silence. From now until after the morning mass, the monastery observes silence. No speech, no unnecessary sound. The monks will move through the night hours in absolute quiet, communicating only when prayer requires it. The monks file out of the church in order of seniority. The prior first, then the oldest monks, then the middle ranks, then the novices. They move slowly, carefully, through the dark cloister. A few candles burn in sconces along the covered walkway, but most of the space is dark. The monks know the way without needing light. Brother William's feet are cold. They have been cold since late afternoon, when he came in from the scriptorium, where he'd been copying a psalter. The scriptorium has no heat, except what comes through the windows when the sun is out, and today was overcast. His hands had grown so stiff by mid-afternoon that he could barely hold the quill. He'd wrapped them in cloth and continued working until the light failed. Now, walking through the cloister, he flexes, his fingers inside his sleeves. The motion helps, slightly. The procession reaches the night stairs, a stone staircase that leads directly from the church to the dormitory above. The monks can descend for the night office without going outside into the winter cold. They climb the stairs in silence. The dormitory is a long, open room running nearly the full length of the monastery's eastern range, unheated, like everything else except the kitchen and the warming room. The stone walls radiate the day's accumulated cold. Along each wall are sleeping spaces, not private cells, but open areas, each monk assigned a section. In each space, a straw mattress on a wooden frame, a wool blanket, a pillow filled with straw, a small chest for personal possessions, which for most monks means little more than an extra pair of stockings and perhaps a comb. A single candle burns at each end of the dormitory, providing just enough light to prevent complete darkness. The prior keeps a candle burning all night. If someone needs to rise during the night for any reason, there must be light to prevent falls. The monks prepare for sleep. They remove their outer cloaks, but sleep in their robes. Removing clothing in this cold would be dangerous. They lie down on their mattresses, pull their blankets over themselves, arrange themselves on their sides or backs. Brother William lies on his side, knees drawn up slightly, hands tucked under his arms for warmth. The straw mattress rustles beneath him. The blanket is heavy but thin, wool, which helps, but a single layer. His feet are still cold. He wiggles his toes inside his stockings, trying to generate warmth. Young Brother Peter, in the novices section, wraps himself tightly in his blanket. He's been at the monastery for half a year now, and winter is harder than he'd imagined. The cold, the darkness, the constant getting up in the night, it's all more difficult than the life he'd left behind in his father's house. But he's committed. He's chosen this path. He closes his eyes and tries to settle into sleep. Brother Thomas lies on his back, his breathing already slowing. His body knows this rhythm. Sleep quickly when you can. The night office will come soon enough. The dormitory fills with the sounds of 60 men settling towards sleep. Rustling straw, occasional coughs, the creak of wooden bed frames, then gradually quiet. Outside, the wind picks up. It moves across the monastery grounds, through the bare trees, against the stone walls. Inside the dormitory, the candles flicker slightly. The darkness deepens. The monks sleep. The hours pass. Outside, the winter night continues. Ice forms in the corners of windows. Frost spreads across the cloister stones. The stars are sharp and clear in the black sky. The monastery is not completely silent. Stone buildings make sounds. Wood expands and contracts with temperature changes. Wind finds gaps and whistles through them. These sounds are constant, familiar. The monks don't wake. Time moves slowly in the darkness. The candles at each end of the dormitory burn down gradually, their light dimming. Inside the dormitory, the sleeping monks are motionless forms under their blankets. Some snore softly, others are silent. Brother William has curled more tightly, seeking warmth. Brother Peter has pulled his blanket over his head, creating a small space of slightly warmer air around his face. Then, around midnight, a change. Brother Thomas stirs, his eyes open. He lies still for a moment, orienting himself. Then he rises, slowly, carefully, trying not to disturb others. He pulls his winter cloak around his shoulders and walks quietly to the prior's sleeping area. The prior is already awake. He's the timekeeper tonight, responsible for waking the community for matins. He's been lying awake, gauging the time by long practice. No clocks in the dormitory, just the internal sense developed over decades of this life. The prior rises. He takes a wooden clapper from beside his bed, a simple device, 2 pieces of wood joined by leather, that makes a sharp sound when shaken. He walks slowly down the center of the dormitory, shaking the clapper steadily. Clack, clack, clack. The sound echoes in the cold space. Monks begin to stir. Some wake immediately, their bodies trained to this. Others take longer, swimming up from deep sleep into the cold darkness. Clack, clack, clack. The sound echoes in the cold space. Monks begin to stir. Some wake immediately, their bodies trained to this. Others take longer, swimming up from deep sleep into the cold darkness. Brother William wakes with the first sound. His eyes open. For a moment, he's disoriented. Then memory returns. Matins. He sits up, his body stiff from cold and the few hours of sleep. He reaches for his cloak, pulls it around himself. Brother Peter wakes more slowly. The sound of the clapper penetrates his sleep gradually. When he finally opens his eyes, he's confused, cold, tired. It takes a moment to remember where he is, what's happening. Then he sees other monks rising, and he pushes himself upright. The dormitory fills with the sounds of men preparing to descend for prayer. Rustling cloth, quiet footsteps, occasional coughs. No one speaks. The silence continues. They form into their usual order and begin descending the night stairs. The stone steps are icy cold under their feet, even through stockings and shoes. The staircase is narrow and steep. They move carefully in the dim candlelight. The church is even colder than the dormitory. The stone walls and floor have been radiating heat away all evening, and now the space is deeply, profoundly cold. The monks' breath forms clouds in the candlelight. They take their places in the choir stalls. Some wrap their cloaks more tightly. Others tuck their hands deep into their sleeves. Young Brother Peter is shivering again, trying not to let it show. The prior begins. The traditional opening. The monks respond. The service begins. Matins is long, the longest office of the day. In winter, when nights stretch endlessly, this can feel like the longest hour of darkness. The monks chant, psalm after psalm. The words flow in ancient rhythms. Some monks know the psalms so well they could chant them asleep. Others follow along more carefully, their tired minds working to maintain focus. Brother William's voice blends with the others. He's cold, but functioning. He's done this for decades, rising in darkness, chanting in the cold. His body knows what to do even when his mind is foggy with interrupted sleep. A monk, designated as reader, stands and reads in a clear voice that carries through the cold stone space. The others listen, or try to. Some minds wander, despite best intentions. Brother Peter finds himself thinking about the bed he left behind, about how warm he'd been, about how much he wants to return to that warmth. He pulls his attention back to the prayers. This wandering of the mind is normal, he's been told. The struggle to maintain focus is part of the discipline. He tries again to concentrate on the words. The service continues. Another psalm, another reading. The cold seeps deeper into everyone. Feet go numb. Fingers ache. But the prayers don't stop. Brother Thomas watches the younger monks as he chants. He sees their struggles. He remembers his own early years, how hard the winter nights were. He'd persevered. Most of these young ones will too. Some won't. The great hymn begins. The monks' voices rise slightly, strengthened by the familiar, powerful words. Then the closing prayers, the blessing. Matins ends. But the night isn't over. After Matins comes Lauds. The monks remain in their stalls. There's a brief pause, while the prior reorganizes the service books. Then Lauds begins. Lauds is shorter. More psalms, more prayers. The cold remains constant. The darkness outside is still complete. Brother William's mind has settled into a kind of peaceful emptiness now. The initial shock of waking has passed. The intense cold has been absorbed into his awareness without overwhelming it. He simply is, standing in the cold, dark church, chanting words he's known for decades. Brother Peter is struggling more. He's exhausted. His body wants sleep. The cold is making him miserable. He tries to remember why he chose this life, what calling brought him here, right now. In the frozen darkness, it's hard to recall. Lauds ends. The monks file out of the church, back through the cloister, back up the night stairs to the dormitory. They have a few hours before the next rising, time to return to sleep, to regain some rest before the cycle begins again with prime at dawn. The monks settle back onto their mattresses. The dormitory is slightly warmer now. The combined body heat of 60 men during the offices has raised the temperature. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. Brother William lies down with a sense of relief. His body is exhausted. The brief time in the church has left him even colder than before. He wraps his blanket tightly and curls onto his side again. Sleep comes quickly for most. Their bodies are well trained in the skill of sleeping whenever opportunity allows. Brother Peter takes longer. His mind is still active, still processing the cold and the darkness and the strangeness of this life. But eventually exhaustion wins. His thoughts slow. His breathing deepens. Sleep claims him. The dormitory quiets again. The candles continue their slow burning. Outside, the deepest part of night continues. The hours between Lauds and dawn are the coldest, the darkest. The monastery rests. The porter is awake at the gatehouse, keeping watch. The infirmarian is available in case of illness. The abbot in his separate chamber may be awake praying privately, but the community as a whole sleeps. Time passes in the darkness. The winter night reaches its nadir. This is the time, the hours just before dawn, when cold is most dangerous, when the ill and the elderly are most vulnerable. But inside the dormitory, the monks sleep on. Their youth and health, their adequate clothing and bedding, the slight warmth of the stone building, all of this protects them. The cold is uncomfortable, but not lethal. Brother William dreams, fragments of memory and imagination, his childhood village, his mother's face, the day he entered the monastery as a boy. The dreams shift and change, following no logic. Brother Peter sleeps without dreaming, too exhausted for dreams. His body has claimed the rest it desperately needs. Brother Thomas sleeps the sleep of long practice, deep but ready to surface when needed. Outside, the first hints of change appear in the eastern sky. Not light yet, just a lessening of the absolute darkness. The stars remain visible, but the quality of the blackness begins to shift. Inside, the prior stirs. He wakes gradually, his internal clock telling him dawn approaches. He lies still for a moment, gathering himself, then rises. He takes the clapper again and begins his walk through the dormitory. Clack, clack, clack. The monks wake again. They rise more slowly now, their bodies heavier with accumulated tiredness. Brother William sits up, his muscles protesting. The brief sleep has helped, but hasn't erased the exhaustion. He'll carry this tiredness through the day until evening sleep comes again. Brother Peter wakes with difficulty. His eyes don't want to open. His body doesn't want to move. but the sound of the clapper is insistent, and around him other monks are rising. He forces himself upright. They descend the night stairs again, the church again, the cold again. Prime, the dawn office, begins as the first grey light appears in the eastern windows. The church is slightly less dark than it was during Matins and Lauds. The monks can see each other's faces now, dim but visible. Prime is brief. The psalms appointed for this hour, prayers, the blessing. As the monks chant, the light outside slowly strengthens. Not sunrise yet, that's still some time away, but the darkness is clearly ending. The long winter night is releasing its grip. Brother William feels a slight lifting of his spirits as the light grows. Night offices in winter are hard. The cold, the darkness, the interrupted sleep, all of it weighs heavily. But the coming of dawn brings a measure of relief. The day will be busy with work, which will warm the body. The warming room will be available for brief periods. There will be the midday meal. Small comforts, but real. Prime ends. The monks remain in the church. Next comes the morrow Mass. Most attend. After Mass comes breakfast and the beginning of the day's work. The Mass proceeds with its familiar structure. The priest at the altar, his breath still visible in the cold air. The monks responding at the appropriate moments. The Mass ends. The monks file out of the church one final time. The sky outside is fully light now, that grey, colourless winter dawn light. The sun hasn't yet risen above the hills to the east, but its coming is certain. In the cloister, the monks can see each other clearly now. Tired faces, reddened noses from the cold, eyes showing the effects of interrupted sleep, but also a sense of completion. The night has been navigated. The offices have been sung. After breakfast comes work. Brother William returns to the scriptorium to continue his copying. Brother Peter goes to the warming room, where the novices receive instruction. Brother Thomas prepares for his day of overseeing the younger monks' education. The night is over. The day begins. 60 men living the same rhythm, waking together, praying together, working together, eating together, sleeping together in the same cold dormitory, the individual held within the collective. The monks got cold. They got tired. They struggled to stay awake during long offices. They looked forward to returning to their beds. They dreaded the sound of the clapper calling them to rise again. But they rose, night after night, winter after winter. They descended the night stairs in darkness. They chanted in the frozen church. They returned to sleep and rose again. Winter brought particular hardships. Ink thickened in its well. Fingers split at the knuckles. The scriptorium was too cold for steady work after midday. Chilblains afflicted nearly everyone by February. The elderly monks suffered most, but the community adapted. Extra blankets were distributed from the common stores. The infirmarian kept a closer watch on vulnerable brothers. The kitchener adjusted meals to provide more warming foods. The prior allowed slightly longer periods in the warming room when the cold was particularly severe. Brother William had known other lives. He'd been a boy in a village, had known family and warmth and ordinary human chaos. He'd chosen this different path young, had lived it now for many years. Some days he questioned the choice, winter nights especially, but mostly he simply lived it. Brother Peter was newer to it all. long enough to understand the basic rhythm, not long enough to have made peace with the difficulties. He would either settle into it over the next years, or he would leave. Many novices left. Some stayed. Time would show which he would be. Brother Thomas remembered his own early winters, remembered the shock of it, remembered thinking he couldn't possibly endure years of this. But he had endured, more than endured. He'd built a life here. Now he guided others, watched their struggles with the compassion that comes from having struggled yourself. Brother William sits in the scriptorium now, his copywork resumed. His fingers are stiff, but warming slowly as he works. The parchment before him is a psalter. The psalms copied in careful script, decorated with simple initials in red and blue ink. He's been working on this manuscript for months. It will take months more to complete. Then it will go to a parish church somewhere, will be used by priests who will never know his name. He dips his quill, forms the next letter. The work is meditative, the same practiced motions, repeated thousands of times. The accumulation of letters into words, words into verses, verses into psalms. Outside, the winter day continues. Grey sky, cold wind. The monastery grounds are frozen hard. A few monks work in the cloister, moving between buildings on necessary errands. Most are inside at their appointed tasks. The day will proceed through its own rhythm. Terce at mid-morning, then sext at midday, followed by the main meal. Then none in the afternoon. Then work again until vespers at dusk. Then Compline. Then sleep. Then the night cycle beginning again. Brother Peter sits in the warming room with the other novices. Brother Thomas is explaining the finer points of conducting oneself during the offices. When to bow, how deeply, at which phrases. The instruction is detailed, technical. Peter tries to focus. His mind keeps wandering to his bed, to sleep, to the warmth he craves. He pulls his attention back. Brother Thomas watches the boys struggle. He knows the signs: exhaustion, cold, the shock of the monastic winter. He'll speak with Peter later, privately. Will remind him that it gets easier, that the body adapts. The dormitory in the deep night, the rows of sleeping forms, the candles burning at each end, their flames steady in the still air. The sound of breathing, 60 men breathing in their sleep, the sound barely audible but constant. The occasional creak of a bed frame as someone shifts position. The wind outside, audible through gaps in the shutters. The cold, not the piercing cold of the outdoors, but the deep, penetrating cold of unheated stone, the kind of cold that seeps into bones, that makes sleep difficult despite exhaustion, that requires curling tight under thin blankets, and willing your body to generate what warmth it can. The darkness, not absolute, the candles prevent that, but deep enough that the far end of the dormitory dissolves into shadow, deep enough that the roof beams above are invisible. And within this cold and darkness, the sleeping monks, each man in his appointed space, each wrapped in his blanket, each breathing the cold air, each dreaming or not dreaming. Brother William in his sleep, his body curled tight, his face relaxed, in a way it rarely is when he's awake. The lines of concentration smoothed away. Just a sleeping man, tired from a day of work and a night of interrupted rest. Brother Peter younger, his sleep deeper despite his struggles. his body claiming the rest it needs, his mind quieter in sleep than it ever is waking, the questions and doubts and homesickness temporarily suspended. Brother Thomas, sleeping the practiced sleep of someone who has done this for many years. His body knows how to extract maximum rest from minimum time, his breathing slow and steady. The hours passing, the candles burning lower, the cold deepening as the night progresses towards its coldest point, the monastery holding its sleeping community, the winter holding the monastery, the darkness holding everything, the night stares in darkness, stone worn smooth by countless feet descending for the night office, the narrow passage, the steep drop of each step, the cold radiating from the stone, even colder than the dormitory or the church because the stairwell is enclosed, unwarmed by bodies or candles, the monks descending in silence, their feet finding the steps automatically, their hands trailing along the stone wall for balance, the sound of their movement, the soft scuff of shoes on stone, the rustle of wool habits, the occasional cleared throat. The smell of the monastery at night, cold stone, candle wax, wool cloth, the faint smell of incense lingering from evening prayers, the smell of men, 60 men living in close quarters, washing infrequently in winter because water is cold and heating it is laborious, the church receiving them, the choir stalls waiting, the altar barely visible in the dim candlelight, the vaulted ceiling lost in darkness overhead, the stone floor radiating cold through the soles of their shoes, the voices beginning, the chant rising into the cold air, the sound of men singing together, their voices blending and separating, creating harmonies and unisons filling the stone space with something besides silence and cold, the call and response, the verses moving forward in their appointed order, the psalms they've sung 1,000 times before, the words so familiar that thought is barely necessary, just the movement of lips and tongue and breath, creating sound, creating prayer, creating the structure that holds the night, and then returning back through the church, back to the cloister, back up the night stairs, back to the dormitory and the waiting beds, the relief of lying down again, the blanket pulled close, the body curling into its sleeping position, the straw mattress rustling one last time as you settle, the dormitory filling again with the sounds of sleep, the breathing resuming, the occasional cough, the creaking of bed frames, the wind outside, the candles still burning, the darkness still deep, the cold still present, but also rest, also sleep, also the temporary release from waking, and in sleep, dreams or no dreams, the mind processing the day or going blank, the body recovering what strength it can in the hours before the clapper sounds again. Night, to prayer to sleep, to prayer to sleep, to prayer to dawn. Brother William sleeping, Brother Peter sleeping, Brother Thomas sleeping, 60 monks sleeping in the cold dormitory while winter night continues outside. The monastery dark except for a few candles, the valley dark around it, the hills dark beyond, the winter sky above, stars sharp and cold in the frozen air. Everything dark, everything cold, everything still except for the wind and the slow turning of the night toward morning. The dark dormitory with its rows of sleeping monks, the candle light flickering at each end, the sound of the clapper calling them to prayer. Brother William curled under his thin blanket, Brother Peter struggling with the cold, Brother Thomas sleeping the sleep of long practice, the church, the choir stalls, the clouds of breath in candlelight, the voices chanting in the darkness, the night offices dividing darkness into measured segments, the monastery quiet, the monks sleeping or praying or beginning their day's work. The winter night passed into winter morning, the bell silent, the chanting faded, the night complete.